Okay, Chair, I can confirm that the meeting is now live to the public on YouTube and being recorded.
Thank you very much, Sue. Good evening and welcome to the extraordinary virtual meeting of East Devon District Council on the 28th of September 2022. I'd like to welcome viewers to our live stream on the East Devon District Council YouTube channel. I'm your chair, Councillor Ian Thomas. Could I remind both members and public joining us this evening that our council's delegated much of its decision-making power to our senior officers until the 31st of October 2022. This is primarily due to concerns relating to COVID risk. As a consequence, this meeting is held on a consultative basis only. We will, however, adhere as closely as possible to the procedural rules detailed in our constitution. The meeting can be viewed live online and will be recorded. Please bear this in mind throughout the meeting. The code of conduct also applies throughout the meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this meeting is dependent on internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. If we're not able to reconnect after 15 minutes, this meeting will be adjourned and we'll reconvene at a later date. As this is a large meeting, it's particularly important colleagues ensure microphones are muted when not in use to avoid disturbance from background noise. Could you keep your points short and not interrupt, please, when somebody else is speaking? If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. Our agenda is available online at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. As you probably know, we sadly lost one of our colleagues recently, Councillor Val Ranger, who was also Vice Chair of Council. I'll be speaking more on that at full council on the 19th of October, but in the interim, I'd like Council's agreement to elect Councillor Eleanor Rylands as Vice Chair for tonight's meeting. So if I could have a quick show of hands, please, in support of that, or we'll go for the electronic hands or the green pluses, green ticks. Thank you very much. I think that's overwhelmingly in support. Congratulations, Eleanor. And of course, you've got to be on watch all the time for when my internet connection drops out to jump in and take over. We'll now start the meeting with a roll call of members. When you hear your name, would you please unmute your microphone and confirm by saying present. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allen.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Councillor Arnott. Sure, I've seen Councillor Arnott. I'll come back to Councillor Arnott. Councillor Bailey. Oh.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Barrow. Councillor Dean Barrow. Okay. Councillor Bickley.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Bonetta.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Bruce. Councillor Cahill. Councillor Chamberlain.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Chapman.
Present, Sue.
Councillor Coleman.
Present.
Councillor Davey.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Desarum.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Faithful.
Present.
Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gazzard. I don't think he will. Councillor Hall.
Present, Sue, thank you.
Councillor Hartnell. Councillor Hartnell.
He tends his apologies, Sue. So he may be in later if he can get back. He's in the traffic jam. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hayward.
Present. Thank you.
Councillor Hookway.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Howe. Councillor Mike Howe.
He tends his apologies. He's away.
Councillor Ingham.
Present.
Councillor Jackson. Councillor Young.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Sorry, I missed out. Councillor Johns.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Kemp.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Key.
Present, Sue.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Ledger. Councillor Loudon.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Manley.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor McCullum. Councillor Miller.
Present.
Councillor Moulding.
Present, but we'll have to leave at 7 p.m.
Councillor Parr.
Yep, I'm here.
Councillor Pepper. Councillor Pook. Councillor Pratt.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Rickson.
Present. Thank you.
Councillor Rowland.
Present. Thanks, Sue.
Councillor Rylands.
Present.
Councillor Skinner.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Thomas.
Present.
Councillor Wibley.
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Woodward.
Present. Thank you.
Councillor Ragg. Oh,
Present.
okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Wright.
Present.
Okay, over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I can comfortably confirm that the meeting is quorate. Agenda item 1 is public speaking. I have 2 members of the public registered to speak today. First is Mark Hawkins there, please?
Hello, Chair. Yes.
You're
Did you
there?
get me? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you now, Mark. Sorry, it all went very, very quiet. Good evening. I think you know the form on this. You've got 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second reminder will be given just before your time runs out. So over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't recognise the CEO's rendering of my earlier statement to Cabinet as accurate. I consider the police were negligent in not making routine public. It's referred to in his report. I consider the police were negligent in not making routine public statements, in stark contrast to their established practice in such matters. Why? For example, a proactive investigation with very public exhumation in Budley in 2011, with commendations all round. My comments appear to have been flipped to build a case justifying their neglect. Why? Having taken advice and researched, I regard the Cliff Richard case comments by the CEO as misleading and irrelevant. Did he not read the article he references in his report? The police are not subject to the restrictions he claims. The Verita report on a similar issue in the Green Party presents a straightforward route to clarification. Their focus is on individual personal responsibility, communication, action, and obligation. In contrast, the QC's opinion, obtained by the CEO, seems to focus on protection of particular groups. Why? The instructions he was given have still not been published. Why? Why can all the individuals involved not just be open with all relevant knowledge rather than hiding behind the collective "we were not told," being whipped or instructed to say nothing? Decent, public-spirited people being used as fig leaves. There is no jeopardy in transparency except for accessories, Theirs is an expensive deceit. I seem to remember the Conservative group pressing their opponents in the recent past about mandatory DBS checks. If you have nothing to hide, do I smell hypocrisy? Councillor Ragg has told us when she first heard of an investigation, probably through a similar route and at a similar time to me. I believe I could name another 4 councillors with knowledge. The CEO now believes that it was common political gossip. I note that at no stage has any councillor declared that Humphreys had been a friend of theirs or that they had received gifts, services or hospitality from him. Not even the one whose wife is seen standing close to Humphreys in the photo at Mr. Jupp's adoption meeting. Why is the chief acting as the minimalist mouthpiece for the officer who attended
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Who attended the meeting with the Lado and the police? They could provide much more clarity than their boss, who was not there and who talks in terms of what the police would have said or done. The officer could tell us what was. How did they balance their perceived obligations to the accused, their employers, and the wider community? Did they discuss the matters, response, and potential implications with their line manager, as any legal officers at the authority would understand and expect to happen, and as emphasised by the Verita approach?
3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I mean, you covered a wide range of points there. With your agreement, obviously we note them, but I can't ask the chief exec to answer all of them this evening, else we'll be here, I'm afraid, for quite a long time anyway.
The rights are rhetorical, really, Chair. I'm happy for him not to. I just, you know, the councillors can raise those with him if they want to take them.
I appreciate that, Mark, but what I try to do when I can is obviously get answers to questions, but I'm afraid the sheer volume there meant I can't deal with it all in one go tonight. But I do note them, and thank you very much for your time. You'll be put back into the waiting room now, and obviously hopefully you'll get a chance to watch the remainder of the meeting on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Unusually this evening, our second public speaker will be addressing us anonymously. As chair, I wish to extend my heartfelt welcome to our guest, a gentleman who's personally suffered as a victim of heinous crimes perpetrated by former councillor and honorary alderman John Humphreys. Welcome. I'll ask, as obviously as usual with speakers, if you can speak within 3 minutes, and a 30-second reminder will be given close to the end of your time. And just so members are aware, our guests will be speaking on Brenda Taylor's channel to be able to maintain anonymity. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the chance to talk tonight. John Humphreys was originally arrested on the 11th of May 2016. On the 24th of January 2017, a file was handed to the Crown Prosecution Service. It took them a long time to deal with this, and the case came to court in August 2021. The police say Humphreys knew that the case was live during this time, 2016 through to 2021. His legal team communicated with the officer in charge, and at no time was he told the case was not being proceeded with. This leaves me wondering who else knew and how he was allowed to just carry on as usual being a councillor at Exmouth in East Devon. When he was convicted, Humphreys was sentenced to 21 years, meaning he would serve at least 2/3, 14 years. He will remain on the sex offenders register indefinitely. I have been told that this is one of the longest sentences ever passed for crimes of this sort. I consider that part of my healing from all of this started when I walked into the witness box and I was able to say what I needed and finally be heard. I insisted that they took away the screen so I could look at him in the eye. It has helped me psychologically because I have always viewed him as a man of influence and standing in our community. I still feel that Humphreys is being favoured because of his connections, his apparent good character and social standing as a councillor. I think he sat as a representative on Devon and Cornwall's Police Scrutiny Committee, and he obviously knew all the people at the top in the Conservatives and in the Masons. In my mind, he has been a monster to me. He took away my teenage years, and this has gone into my adulthood. I should have retained the innocence, but the choice was taken away from me by this man. There are still so many questions unanswered after the verdict. I'm still being ignored. I would like to be heard. It is important to me that the council hears me. Here's my statement. What difference it makes, I don't know. Maybe a few people will be sat there worrying. I would like to voice my disgust with the lack of concern and urgency from the people who are supposed to safeguard our communities. How would you feel if this was your child? Wouldn't you want a chance to get to the bottom of it? Why he was allowed to stand as a public figure? My concern is also the lack and the want of the investigation. Without this, how can anything be learnt from the whole situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for speaking with us this evening. I recognise how difficult this must have been for you, but appreciate this most personal insight into the harm caused by devastating crimes. Whatever the recommendations from our meeting this evening, I feel confident in assuring you that we all share unqualified disgust in the behaviour of John Humphreys, together with a sincere wish that you're ultimately able to gain some closure. You'll now be returned to the waiting room, but I hope Councillor Taylor is able to arrange for you to watch the remainder of our meeting live on the Council's YouTube channel. Thank you very much again. Agenda item 2, apologies. I've so far received apologies from Councillor Blakey, Councillor Kim Bloxham, Councillor Colin Brown, Councillor Alan Dent, Councillor Ian Chubb, Councillor Sam Hawkins, Councillor Marcus Hartnell, who I know is stuck in traffic and may well join us later on, Councillor Stuart Hughes, Councillor Paul Jarvis, Councillor Phil Twiss, and Councillor Tom Wright. Do we have any more apologies, Sue?
If I may, Ian, I've just been able to sign in. It's Phil Twisty. I've just been able to sign. I didn't have the link.
Okay, no problem. So if we could delete Councillor Twist's apologies and note that he is actually with us now.
Yeah, and one more, Ian. Steve
Brenda.
Gassard. Steve Gassard's apologies. He's not here.
Thank you. Thank you. Does that cover everything?
Mhm.
Lovely. In the absence of any more hands, agenda item 3 are declarations of interest, which I intend to take by exception. So if there are any declarations of interest, mindful of course of the new code of conduct, would you please indicate with your yellow marigolds, state your declaration, include which agenda item your declaration relates to, state exactly what your interest is, and the specific type of interest you're declaring. I've got a Councillor Arnott. Paul.
In this very unusual circumstance, Chair, I'm genuinely not sure how to declare this interest, but I have met the victim who we have just heard from on a number of occasions. It's obviously not prejudicial, but I thought it should be declared.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, can I also echo that, because I've met the victim as well, and his mother.
Thank you, Eileen. Appreciate that. And
I would like to declare that too, please.
Councillor Bailey, that wasn't it? Yeah, Councillor Bailey. And I've got Councillor Armstrong. Is it the same declaration, Megan?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, it's coming thick and fast now. Councillor Rickson. Marianne, is this the same?
I'm another one who has met the victim.
Thank you very much. I think that's hopefully covered everybody off. If we could take those two hands down. We now move on to agenda item 5, the report on former councillor and honorary alderman John Humphreys. This item is an updated report from the Chief Executive following his original report to Cabinet on the 7th of September. We've several recommendations to consider aimed at ensuring that the circumstances leading to the appointment of John Humphreys as an honorary alderman do not happen again, and the concerns of council members are addressed. Before I invite the Chief Executive to present his report, I hope a short explanation is helpful as to how I intend we manage the meeting after the Chief Executive has spoken. Firstly, I'll invite members to comment or ask questions on the first two recommendations only before we vote on recommendation 1, immediately followed by voting on recommendation 2. Should council decide on recommendation 2 that it does wish to recommend commissioning an independent investigation or inquiry into this matter, we'll move to consider adoption of either recommendation 3A or 3B. At this point, I'll invite members to comment or ask questions on options 3A and 3B before a vote to accept one option is taken. However, should council decide it does not wish to commission a report or inquiry, then recommendations 3A and 3B fall away. We'll then consider, in any event, and vote on recommendations 4, 5, and 6 individually in turn. I hope that's clear and helps actually streamline the process this evening, so we're actually focusing on particular items one at a time or particular areas. Therefore, can I invite the Chief Executive, please, to present his report? Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Can I take members back to the motion that was approved at the April meeting, I think it was, and in particular, what council wanted, which was a clear understanding how John Humphreys, despite his arrest in May 2016, continued to serve as a councillor until May 29, retained his position as lead member for Exmouth, and went on to be bestowed the honour of an alderman by this council in December 2019. And it said also, in particular, the report should focus on the circumstances of how John Humphreys came to be nominated and bestowed the award of an honorary alderman, despite being under criminal investigation at the time. It's probably axiomatic to say, but in all these cases, they are fact specific, and that's how I've sought to approach my report and how I've framed the recommendations for council to consider. So there is a background. I'm assuming that councillors have familiarised themselves with the background in terms of information that's publicly available around the offences for which Humphreys was convicted and sent to prison, when they occurred, when complaints were first made to the police and when they weren't pursued, when Humphreys first became a councillor, leading up to, as I say, what council was after in terms of the motion, information regarding or an understanding regarding matters from May 2016. And in that context, that's why I took the decision in conjunction with liaising with the group leaders to obtain a QC's opinion into the matter, because it struck me that when you read the motion, when you read the debate of what took place, there was a degree of misunderstanding and uncertainty around what the law says, what the relevant procedural requirements are regarding safeguarding. And I'll come back to that in a minute in terms of council's advice, because I think they do help frame what happened and why, if you like, in terms of the sequence of events. But just to go back to those two primary requirements, we know that an officer, one of my officers, an officer of the council, was requested to attend a meeting at Devon County Council by the Lado officer. At that meeting, the police were in attendance. The police asked for certain information. That information was provided, and the officer concerned was left in no uncertain terms that that meeting was confidential, that the information provided was confidential, and it was to remain such. That is important because, as you can see from council's advice, there are a range of ways in which the council's safeguarding obligations can bite in terms of matters that are brought to the council's attention, if you like, so to my attention through members of the public or through councillors, as opposed to the council operating as a partner authority in conjunction with other lead partners in the safeguarding process. So Humphreys was arrested in May 2016. The council was never officially told, and for that matter, the council heard nothing from the police at all since then. Obviously, if you read the local papers, you could have picked up, I think it was in November 20, which was Humphrey's first appearance, and then subsequently the press reports that covered the conduct of the trial in 2021. So he was arrested in May 2016. As far as I'm concerned, that information was confidential. The officer concerned was not at liberty to say that to anyone, and the police conducted their investigation. And as we just heard from one of the speakers, a file was submitted to the Crown Prosecution Service. So even had it become public knowledge, and that's, this is speculation in that respect, but I think it's also worth pointing out that even if it had become public knowledge, had the police taken that decision, if you like, to make it public knowledge, in procedural terms, in administrative law terms, if you like, there's no power on the part of this council to suspend a councillor. There's no power on the part of this council to require a councillor to resign. The best you could say, which is what I've alluded to in previous meetings and which council refers to in the advice, is you hope you're dealing with a decent person and they would resign in those circumstances. But clearly we know that's not the sort of person that we were dealing with in this case. So that's the situation, if you like, in terms of informing the reason I've come to my recommendations with regard to the arrest situation in May 2016 and then what followed on. Similarly, if you like, it applies to the process under which Humphreys came to be nominated and bestowed the award of honorary alderman. You already know that because I've covered that off in my report to scrutiny. The proposals, the nominations for honorary alderman come forward from group leaders. They're consulted on with other group leaders. And if no one makes a comment, if no one makes a recommendation, they go forward to council for yourselves to decide. There is no officer recommendation, never has been, with regard to who should become an honorary alderman. It is a member-led matter. It's a member decision, if you like, in that respect. So that was how it came to be that, as I say, the council decided in 2019 that the honorary alderman position should be awarded to Humphreys. So having said that, if I can then take you to the recommendations in my report, the first one, as I say, looks to be relatively straightforward in terms of noting the advice of Peter Oldham QC. I'm assuming that it has been read by councillors. Certainly no councillors asked for any comment on it or clarification on it or asked me any questions with regard to it. But if you do read it, if you have read it in full, I think it's important, again, in terms of the fact-specific nature of this issue, that you perhaps have a look at paragraphs 12 through to 19, because what council says in paragraphs 12 through to 19 have informed, if you like, how I've approached the recommendations, which I would say, I mean, clearly you're free to disagree with me, but I would say, seek to address the mischief, if you like, of how this council found itself to be in the situation it has with regard to the experience of Humphreys. So paragraph 12, for example, does say that the legislation provides that the child safeguarding role of a district council, when not specifically engaged in the delivery of particular services, is as a partner with other authorities, some of which may have more extensive powers and duties to take steps to safeguard children in particular circumstances. And I would say that's relevant and important with regard to this, because no complaint was received by this council in terms of engaging a process, if you like, of trying to assess and understand what Humphreys had done or might have been doing with regard to the activities of the district council. That process came through the county council and the police, and this council being requested to attend to give information in that confidential LADO meeting. Similarly, paragraph 13 and 14 go on to canvass similar things, but particularly with regard to paragraph 14 and the fact that the QC could only find an old, outdated LGA reference guide to safeguarding. That is something that I have discussed with the LGA and the LGA officer lead on safeguarding, and they're aware that it's an issue where, you know, work should be done in terms of updating guidance, updating awareness. I understand from that particular officer that they've sought funding from the Department of Education, but it hasn't been forthcoming in terms of the conversations they've had, which is why one of my recommendations is around working with the LGA to make sure that we have an up-to-date, relevant guidance that can be used for councillors, both district, town and parish councillors within the district. Similarly, paragraph 17 I think is important, and I'm quite happy to discuss that in some more detail if you want. And I think also paragraph 19 is relevant in terms of the limitations and, if you like, the expectation that you're dealing with honourable people in these circumstances, but actually you're not. So, but the expectations that, you know, you hope the member would already have resigned or have been imprisoned in such circumstances. So those aspects, I would say, are important in terms of wanting to understand why, you know, council's opinion is relevant. And then you bring it back to, you know, recommendation 2 is that, you know, what should a excuse me a minute, my screen's just frozen. Should we have sorry. Should we commission an independent investigation? I think you know what there is to know. You may not like, we don't want to hear what there is to know, but in terms of the council's engagement, the council's involvement in this, you know what there is to know. And my recommendations, be they recommendation 4, which seeks to highlight that, you know, there's an obligation on councillors when they're proposing someone for an honour or a position within the council to carry out a process of due diligence. That's an omission, if you like, in terms of our current procedures. So I would recommend that to you. Similarly, I've also touched on the recommendation 5, which is around the best practice guidance note. But I do just want to touch on recommendation 6 because I think that is important. I mean, clearly, I heard you know, what Mr. Hawkins said with regard to his interpretation of police powers and police obligations and things like that. I'm quite clear from the documents that I've given you in terms of the guidance notes that the police work to that it is a more complex and complicated picture than has been suggested. But the nub of it is, if a council, because, you know, it's not needn't necessarily just be this council, but if a council, you know, is required to be told that a councillor has been arrested, none of this would have happened, you know, in the first place, I think, with regard to Humphreys in terms of making him an honorary alderman, and also it would allow the council to sort of take a view with regard to how things should proceed. My report, as originally drafted, was that actually, you know, it wasn't a question in terms of 6B about if found guilty, the councillor should be requested to resign. I actually think personally, in terms of public confidence in councillors, you know, if you've been arrested, you should resign. I think it's a massive privilege to represent the public as an elected councillor or an elected MP for that matter. And I think the public are entitled to expect the highest standards of conduct. I don't think the reality of what happens matches or marries up with the public's expectation. But if you look at recent changes to the law, particularly with regard to disqualification from standing as a councillor, it's quite clear that Parliament isn't yet ready to consider those sort of steps, if you like, that I personally would favour. And it allows a whole appeal process to be gone through with regard to the different offences for which you can now be disqualified from standing as a councillor or being a councillor if you've been elected. So happy to answer questions with regard to that, but that's my introduction to those recommendations, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mark. What I'd like to do now is, obviously I've got some hands already, but to raise electronic hands, comments and questions relating to primarily recommendations 1 and 2 only, please. We'll pick up others later. You will have another chance to speak. I've got Councillor Miller. Paul.
Thanks, Chair. I listened to the Chief Executive's verbal report there very carefully, particularly his reference to the system of aldermen. And a question that still arises in my head, whilst the officers cannot make recommendations at that meeting, there was at least one officer that was aware of the fact a councillor had been nominated to be an alderman and there was a police investigation. Could that officer have gone to the county council or the police to request an update on the progress of that investigation and to ask what could have been done to prevent that honour from being issued? That is one of the reasons I have always been in support of an independent investigation. In the last meeting, I felt the leader of the council and Councillor Bailey showed extraordinary restraint when the Chief Executive referred to members' quest for an independent investigation as what many people would see as a political witch hunt. I cannot show such restraint following what we heard from the victim just now. I would ask the Chief Executive to withdraw and apologise for the phrase he used at the last Cabinet meeting. This investigation has always been about learning lessons, not pointing fingers. As well as reference to the political witch hunt, the Chief Executive justifies his advice of not pursuing with an independent investigation in that he believed the situation was not unique, and then went on to compare child rape with benefits fraud. I hope we can all agree any such comparisons should be avoided. There was then a suggestion from the Chief Executive that he understood why the event had made councillors concerned about the council's reputation. This is to misunderstand, in my view, the concerns of the requisitions. It's not about protecting the council's reputation, it is to ensure no stone is left unturned and any lessons, however small, can be learned. The Chief Executive has stated his view that we will find out nothing that we don't already know. And I hope that's the case. And if it is so, it still will have been worth doing on behalf of the person who spoke at the start of the meeting to be sure. Justice doesn't start and end in the courts. We need to look at all of our institutions and make reforms if and where they are necessary. Thank you, Chair. I'll be voting for an investigation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Chief Executive Mark, do you want to comment or not at this point?
No, it probably wouldn't help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, apologies for butting in. I just managed to connect, having tried for the last 20 odd minutes. So apologies if I can be added to the register and I have nothing to declare. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Skinner. Philip.
Thank you. And as leader of the East Devon District Council Conservative Group, I wish to make a particular statement. On picking up on the previous questions posed by members, the association looked into our procedures and duly responded with a letter attached within your documents. I believe it answered the questions being posed by members. Regarding the recommendations this evening, I absolutely support in the way our Chief Executive, Mark Williams, has laid out his report. It pertains to be factual, and the way in which Mr. Williams has handled this matter, in my view, has been exemplary. It's on that basis I very much support recommendation 1 to note the advice from Peter Oldham QC. In consideration of recommendation 2, and taking into account the advice from counsel, I agree that there is little to be gained from commissioning an independent report. The result from such a report, in my view, would take us no further forward than we are now and would cost the best part of £50,000 at a time when our finances are already stretched. I would, if such a move is implemented, ask from which pot this is coming from, particularly when Devon County Council is conducting their own inquiry. Furthermore, this recommendation does nothing to help the victims of this atrocious crime. We must always put them first. I'll leave it to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. I've got Councillor Bailey. Jess.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to thank our public speakers tonight, especially our second public speaker. I wasn't expecting the meeting to be sectioned into these two parts or three parts, but so I feel I do need to give some clarity to people who are watching at home, because they will not be aware that, or may not be aware from what's been said, that I've put forward a requisition, and that's recommendation 3A. So I do not agree with what the Chief Executive has said. I believe there are many questions that remain unanswered. We've been going round in circles for a year with members asking for an investigation. Members asked for an investigation on the 20th of April in principle, and the Chief Executive decided that an investigation was not appropriate. And it's that prompted me to put a requisition in on the 16th of August, 11 and a half months after I'd started asking for it. So I believe there are many questions that remain unanswered. I don't find the answers that I'm looking for in the report, and I find it concerning that we are still having to explain why we want an investigation when we've explained it many times. In the months and years following John Humphrey's arrest in May 2016, while he continued as an East Devon District Councillor, did East Devon District Council take the appropriate safeguarding steps and other appropriate actions? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think we know the answer to that. Why did the council allow him to attend events when children were present? They knew he'd been arrested for offences against children, but he was still allowed to attend events when children were present. Why did East Devon District Council award him an aldermanship in December 2019 when he was under investigation for offences against children? That question hasn't been answered, and we've heard from our speaker this evening that there are many unanswered questions. So I don't accept that we don't need an investigation. Members have already said that they want an investigation, and it was agreed unanimously with one abstention, and that was in April, and we're still talking about whether we need an investigation or not. So I'm fine to note the advice, which actually doesn't say we can't do an investigation. And I'm going to repeat, yes, we do need an investigation, but I don't see why we're having to really vote on that again, because the council have agreed that. So thank you, but I will be speaking later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jess. And I hope actually it makes the structuring the evening like this makes it easier for people watching to understand. I was concerned that we'd be jumping around into so many different subjects and it could get confusing. So at least we've got a compartmentalised meeting now, which hopefully helps understanding. Councillor Wibley, Joe.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'll try and keep this brief. I'd just like to pick up on something that Councillor Skinner said. What would it do for the victim? Well, I think he's made it clear, Councillor Miller made it clear. that it would show that he's being listened to. And I think that's the least that he deserves. So I think that's a bit of a moot point. And I also question, I don't want to become emotional, but I do think there is an emotional side to this that we are denying here, that we need to allow in a little bit. Anyway, I think the fact that I'm having to make the following points again saddens me. I appreciate Mark's explanation of events. Some of them sound like they'd be better placed in before any possible inquiry, should that follow, than being part of this debate. I think the key question we need answering involves not only official communications, as the one stated by the CEO regarding John Humphrey, but what did people know outside of that? What did individuals know? And to answer this, I think if you're going to answer these questions honestly, it will require a lot of soul searching and honesty on the part of those being asked them. And that falls outside the legal framework within which the CEO's framed his report, suggesting that we use CAMCEL. Safeguarding and the creation of an environment in which you can promote and act on safeguarding principles should be, like it or not, at the forefront of every public organisation's thinking. And this shows that at East Devon it isn't. If we vote for an investigation tonight, as I believe we must, that can't be seen to have a whiff of influence from anybody in a senior position during the period in question, be that councillor, outside body, officer. And I think, evidently we can't be seen to be marking our own homework. And I think that a local law firm that's sourced and appointed and guided by officers who were in post at the time, it does not fit that criteria at all. And again, it's been said before, it's not a witch hunt, and nor is it political, but that does not mean, given the seriousness of the matter, that any quarter at all should be given or expected on the grounds of causing reputational damage to any party, organisation or individual. We can't let that be a reason not to do this. And it's something that I've heard mention of many times. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Joe. Councillor Rylance, Eleanor, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. So as a trained teacher, we have a duty of safeguarding towards children. And, this is drummed into us from the very earliest stage of our training. Any service that handles the welfare of children has this duty, and anybody who may come into contact with children. Now, we don't, as a district council, have obvious responsibility for children's services. However, we know that this individual, John Humphreys, weaponised his social standing in order to gain access to children and teenagers. We know that he was able to use the fact that he was an elected representative on our council to essentially lord it over at least 2 children. And in that respect, he has dragged East Devon Council into this, even though we do not have direct responsibility for children's services. Now, I did actually, thank you, Mark, read through all the way through the legal counsel, as you would expect. And 2 particular things struck me. And that was actually the weakness of the expectation of what a councillor would do if they were indicted for such a crime. We know, well, we certainly know now, but we know from experience as well that people who are intent on doing ill will not necessarily be bound by the same conventions that a lot of us would. And we also know that it's an incredibly weak expectation that somebody will resign if they're so much as indicted for such a serious crime, because this person was actually using his social standing and the social capital afforded him by having 1,000 or so votes behind him to crush the spirit of children and tell them that his social position was so much higher than theirs that he could get away with it. And he did this for years. Now, he surely was not able to do this alone. We were, all of us, practically all of us who were actually sitting at the December 2019 meeting, made him into an honorary alderman. We didn't know. I didn't know. I'd only met him twice. I'd been elected for 2 years by then. I didn't know him at all. I'd seen him twice in passing. By convention, two people have to propose people and say, look, I'm willing to stake my reputation on this person and put him forwards for election to be alderman. And that is the flimsy sort of evidence base that we are expected to go on. Now, it makes me quite cross, actually, that I was dragged into this, but not anywhere near as cross as it does make me to think that in the centre of this, there are at least two children who are now, adults, who were caught up in this, where all the adults that they could have turned to failed them. Every single adult failed them. We know that the police failed this young man because when he first reported it, it took 13 years to come to court. It should not have been a historical investigation, but it was. It was a historical investigation because the first report that this young man made was not pursued. So we know that the police already failed him. And clearly we have some systemic failings which have allowed this horrendous individual to be given a social standing that he absolutely, by the time we've elected him to do that, did not merit. Now, my interest in this has never been political, and I really do resent the implication that it might have been political. It has never been political. My interest is purely about safeguarding children, as is the interest of everybody here, I suspect. And safeguarding children is the primordial thing. There's nothing that should go ahead of child safeguarding. Because if we aren't safeguarding our young, if we are placing other interests ahead of the welfare of our young people, then who is looking after them? £50,000, is that more important than the safeguarding of children? I don't think so. I don't think so. £50,000 is £1 out of the council tax bill of every single household in this local authority. To have the reassurance that we have everything in place and pointing in the right direction so that this sort of thing can never happen again. At the moment, as Councillor Bailey has said, we have too many unanswered questions. We have too many things that we don't know the answers to. And we need to find out where we could have done better, what we could have put in place to prevent this from happening, how we could have prevented our systems from being manipulated by a very cunning individual. And, I have a few other questions, but, I felt that the Articles 18 and 19 in the legal opinion were really quite weak. You can't just expect a cunning, manipulative individual to suddenly discover a conscience and come forwards with their hands held up and say, okay, I'm stepping down, because that's not going to happen. So what do we do as an organisation about this to prevent this from happening again? Because we haven't got any answers on that yet, and we need answers. There are other things I think I did want to say, but I think they'll probably come in at a later date. But let's, the other question I wanted to ask, which probably will come in at a later date, is about the multiply cancelled meetings that the officer within our council was going to attend but didn't, which effectively exposed our council to even further risk. Now we need to find answers about that, because for whatever reason those meetings were all cancelled, we should have known more about it. So I would want to know more about the cascade of information down the local authority chain. And also I would like to know more about potential links between the police and East Devon Council and how that could be improved, so that, for example, as the legal expert said, we could have maybe made sure that John Humphreys was not in a position where he had any access to children. And we know that's not the case. We know he was carrying on being near children on official business quite late into his investigation. So we know that that's another failing. So we need to find out where the failings are in order to proceed and make sure this never happens again, so that we can do justice by the children of East Devon and by the two victims that we know of, and say hand on our heart that we've done everything we could to make sure this doesn't happen to any other children. And I don't feel that we have that at the moment. And that is why I think that we should go with a very outside investigator who can ask completely questions that will not have any sort of inside East Devon district or influences, and that they can be allowed to crack on and ask the questions that they want to ask, with everybody safe in the knowledge that they do not know any of the people involved. They don't know any of the people that they're asking questions of. They don't know any of the victims. They don't know anybody around here. And I think that's really crucial. I think it's crucial not just to do the right thing, but also for the reassurance for the victims that we know of, that we are actually trying to do the right thing fully. And I don't think there's any case whatsoever for asking a local law firm, I'm afraid. I think it has to be an organisation that is not based in East Devon. That's all I have to say at present, I think. But, you know, bear in mind that we did afford, as an organisation, we afforded John Humphreys social capital. I'll leave you with that thought.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. And Mark, do you want to come in at that point?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I made the point that you have to be very fact specific about this, and my worry is that some of the things I'm starting to hear aren't fact specific. So I would encourage members to consider that. I've previously made a comment in correspondence with regard to this whole matter that the only way you will probably get something that is genuinely independent is if the council was to refer itself to the Secretary of State on the basis, and this would just be the way that the thing is framed, we failed in our duty of best value in terms of the way that this thing has transpired. And without wanting to trespass into recommendation 3A, and my concerns about that, or 3B for that matter, if that's the way council wants to go, I think you seriously need to think about, asking the Secretary of State to assess this matter and look into it, and perhaps potentially appoint a best value inspection team to really look into this. That will be people with no association whatsoever with East Devon. Okay, so otherwise 3A or 3B for that matter will inevitably have some form of association with East Devon. It won't be, in terms of, for example, the Vice Chair has currently commented upon, genuinely independent.
Thank you very much, Mark. I must remind members on this one, I'm only taking one contribution from a member for each section as a maximum. So I'm afraid Councillor Miller and Councillor Bailey, you've already spoken. I won't be taking you again on this section. Councillor Wragg, Eileen.
Thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank the victim for coming forward. He does believe that he is beginning to be listened to after so many years, when he couldn't even go to his own parents because they thought Humphreys was wonderful. So in fact, he was grooming the parents as well as the child. And I'd also like to thank Mark Hawkins, because obviously I've never spoken with Mark Hawkins. I don't know him, but he's obviously done a lot of homework on this and obviously cares very much about what has happened and what might happen in the future. I totally endorse what Councillor Bailey has said. I cannot understand why a senior officer in our council, even though it's confidential, cannot report back to his line manager, which would be the chief executive, presumably. And with Devon County Council being the safeguarding body, why didn't they pursue it? They've already admitted that that was a mistake. What a mistake. How can anyone have faith in the system? And I think the questions that were posed by Mark Hawkins actually merit and give credibility to an independent, a totally independent investigation. As for referring to the Secretary of State, Mark, with respect, the confidence in this government has sunk to a level that I've never experienced before in my life in national government. I believe that for absolute honesty, for clarity, there should be a completely independent and a truly independent investigation, because at the moment it seems that at best collusion and collaboration has taken place. We don't know which powerful organizations, which powerful individuals may be involved, but an investigation will clear that. But at best, it's been collusion and collaboration. At worst, it's been an orchestrated cover-up. And that is borne out by, I think, the minimal coverage in the local media, in the Exmouth Journal, after complaints that there was no coverage of the trial. There was the shortest of columns on page 16 of an edition of the Journal about 3 weeks later. And after complaints to the press organisation, that reporter left the job. There is something that's clearly not right. And when it comes to, I hear it's 50,000 now, it had been 45,000, but that was a speculative amount. When it comes to child safety and this young man's life, in his own words, my life has been ruined. It's in tatters, make no mistake about that. No mistake about that. I've met him twice. He's gaining strength now from the fact that he is being listened to. He feels he's being listened to. And this is a step further. So I will certainly be backing wholeheartedly a completely independent investigation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Eileen. I'm just going to take 3 more speakers on this section, and then we'll move to a vote on recommendations 1, followed by recommendation 2. Councillor Davey, Ollie.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. Almost every investigation into harm to children has highlighted failures in communication between the various authorities, and that has to be the case here. So I am in absolutely no doubt that we need some kind of investigation to find out what role our council played and why information that was known was not passed on. And I'm not going to say who knew what or anything like that. I don't know. But I have done some safeguarding training. I'm also an ex-teacher. And the training always emphasized the importance of communicating concerns. If you knew anything, if an adult reported something to you, a classroom assistant, a parent, or a child, you didn't investigate, you didn't question, you simply passed those concerns up. You did not feel under any obligation of, oh, I mustn't judge this, perhaps there's nothing to it. You simply passed it on. And that's what should have happened here. Of course, ultimately, it rests with the police. And I don't know if we'll ever get answers from the police. I don't know if they have an investigation going on. But that should be the final point where the anything, if there is cause, that is investigated. So I do think we need an investigation. I have to say I've some misgivings about Verita. I have read the CVs of all their staff, and I'm not absolutely convinced that they have the relevant experience. I'm not quite sure why they have been quoted, apart from the fact that they did do an investigation into a very similar case for my own party, the Green Party. But I noticed that DCC, and I just read this today, have appointed an Ofsted inspector to carry out their investigation. Obviously, an Ofsted inspector will have safeguarding right at the top of their agenda, because whenever they go into schools, it is the first thing they're looking at is protection of those young people. I will keep an open mind about that, but I have yet to be convinced, and I hope somebody can, as to why Verita are the right people to appoint for this. But I do feel we need some kind of investigation, and it needs to be as wide-ranging as possible to ask why things that were known were not passed on to those people who should have known, and the chief executive has pointed out, we didn't know, we weren't told, and indeed we should have been, because we should not have allowed that councillor to continue certain public duties knowing what we should have known about him.
Thank you, Ollie. That's very helpful. 2 more to go, please, on this section. Councillor Armstrong. Megan.
Well, thank you, Chair. Just 3 fairly brief points I want to make. One is just a clarification from what the Chief Executive said earlier, and I did mention it at the last Cabinet meeting, that as a group leader, I although apparently I was sent the invitation to discuss and contribute to the discussions that took place about whether advice should be taken from a QC, I never actually received that email. So I just wanted to clarify for the minutes that I wasn't part of that discussion. I didn't know anything about it until long afterwards. So if that could be minuted, please, I'd appreciate it. And so, secondly, I was one of the members who signed a requisition which was proposed by Councillor Bailey following the lack of action to instigate an investigation, as agreed by the council in April. That is what was overwhelmingly voted for in April, and it should have been started months ago, in my opinion. And so, as Councillor Bailey has already raised, I don't know why we're having this discussion yet again as to whether we should have an investigation. There should be no question about that. We should be having an independent investigation. And so thirdly, I just want to confirm that I will be voting for an independent investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Our final speaker on this section, please, Councillor Jackson. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if I might pose a question either to Mark or the monitoring officer, which may impact my response to that, and then might I respond to that if possible. My question is just in regard to the final comment on point 13 of the report around the monitoring officer's investigation budget. My query is really around what percentage of that has been on resolving issues relating to low tier authorities at town and parish council level, members there, and what relates to those at East Devon District Council. That sort of will inform my response if possible.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether I couldn't, it was quite difficult to hear you, Sarah, on that one, but I don't know whether Mark picked up and would just be able to quickly answer your question, or...
I can answer it. Well, I can.
Thank you, Henry, if you could.
I can't give you the answer now. Is the answer? Predominantly, the majority of fees currently are on second tier or on lower tier authorities, but there have been investigation expenses incurred in relation to East Devon. But primarily, it is lower tier.
Thank you very much, Henry. What I'd like to do now, please, is move to a vote first on recommendation 1. These recommendations are on page 3 of your agenda papers. and this one relates to noting.
Can I call for a recorded vote, please?
Do you have a seconder for a recorded vote?
Yes.
Seconded, Councillor Vanessa.
All those in favour of a recorded vote, please. And any against? I think it's safe to say that's overwhelmingly carried. We don't need to count them. So that will be a recorded vote. Sue, if you can make yourself ready to do the honours.
Okay.
So I say the first bit is that while Sue's preparing, that Council note the advice of Mr. Peter Oldham QC set out in Appendix A to this report. And there's a recorded vote for that. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I thought you were doing both of them.
No, we're taking them both in sequence. They are being taken separate because they're separate recommendations, as I said at the beginning. Do I detect that actually you didn't want to record a vote for this particular one, or?
I want a recorded vote on the second one, please. Thank you.
Okay,
no, I want a recorded vote on the first one, so I want to stick with a recorded vote, please.
Okay, well, we'll thank you very much, Councillor Skinner. Well, despite that confusion, what we'll do is we'll go with the first one and we'll have a recorded vote on it. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, Councillor Allen.
4.
Councillor Armstrong.
4.
Councillor Arnott.
4.
Councillor Bailey.
4.
Councillor Bickley.
4.
Councillor Bonetta.
4.
Councillor Bruce.
4.
Councillor Cahill. Councillor Chamberlain.
4, please, Sue.
Councillor Chapman.
4.
Councillor Coleman.
4.
Councillor Davey.
4.
Councillor Desarum.
4.
Councillor Faithful.
4.
Councillor Gardner.
Sue, I believe Councillor Gardner has given advance apologies for a number of meetings, just to, if that's helpful.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Hall.
4.
Councillor Haywood.
4. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Hookway.
4. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Councillor Ingham.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4, thank you.
Councillor Young.
4, thank you.
Councillor Johns.
4, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Kemp.
4, thank you.
Councillor Key.
4, Sue.
Councillor Lawrence.
4, thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
4, Sue.
Councillor Manley.
4, sorry.
Sorry, can I just ask you to repeat what you said, Councillor Manley?
4.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sue.
I didn't hear. Councillor Miller.
4.
Councillor Moulding, who may have left. Councillor Moulding. Councillor Parr.
4.
Councillor Pepper.
4.
Councillor Rickson.
4.
Councillor Pratt.
4.
Councillor Rowland.
4.
Councillor Rylance.
4.
Councillor Skinner.
4.
Sorry, Councillor Skinner, would you mind repeating that?
4.
Thank you, sorry. Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Twiss.
4.
Councillor Wibley.
4, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Woodward.
4.
Councillor Ragg,
4.
Councillor Chris Wright.
4.
Okay, Chair, that was unanimous.
Thank you very much. That's a nice start. On to recommendation 2, straight away, a vote on that, please, that council consider whether in the light of the advice received and the updated contents of this report, it does or does not wish to commission an independent investigation or inquiry. What I'll do to make this easy, that if we rephrase that slightly, that the wording be that it does wish to commission an independent investigation, then that would mean a vote for would be for an independent investigation. A vote against would be that we don't commission an investigation, and an abstention would be just that. So if you could do, I haven't had any requests for a recorded vote on this one. Does that mean we don't want one?
No, we do, please.
No.
Right, okay, again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I've got to do a quick vote again on these to keep Henry happy. All those in favour, please, of a recorded vote on this second recommendation, indicate with your ticks. Any against with your crosses, abstentions with your hand. Again, I think that's overwhelming in favour of a recorded vote. We don't need to count on that. So Sue, straight across to you, please. If you could go with recommendation 2, remembering that 4 is we do commission an investigation, and against means we don't wish to. Okay.
Okay, right. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allen.
Abstain.
Councillor Armstrong.
4.
Councillor Arnott.
4.
Councillor Bailey.
4.
Councillor Bickley.
4.
Councillor Bonetta.
4.
Councillor Bruce.
Against.
Councillor Cahill.
Against.
Councillor Chamberlain.
4.
Councillor Chapman.
Abstain.
Councillor Coleman.
4.
Councillor Davey.
4.
Councillor De Sarum.
Against.
Councillor Faithful.
4.
Councillor Hall.
Abstain.
Councillor Hayward.
4. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Hookway.
4. Thank you.
Councillor Ingham.
Against.
Councillor Jackson.
4. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Johns.
Oh, sorry. 4, please, Sue.
Councillor Young.
4.
Councillor Kemp. Councillor Kemp. Councillor Key.
Abstain.
Councillor Lawrence.
Against.
Councillor Loudon.
4, Sue.
Councillor Manley.
4.
Councillor Miller.
4, and I think Councillor Kemp tried to vote then.
Can I just ask again then, Councillor Kemp?
Thank you. Yes, that was 4. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Okay. Councillor Parr.
Against.
Councillor Pepper.
Against.
Councillor Pratt.
4.
Councillor Rixon.
4. Thank you, sir.
Councillor Rowland.
4.
Councillor Rylance.
4.
Councillor Skinner.
Against.
Councillor Thomas,
For.
Councillor Twiss,
Against.
Councillor Wibley,
Sue,
For.
you forgot me. You forgot me, Sue.
Brenda, mic's on. Oh, I see. She forgot you.
yeah. Councillor Taylor, sorry, I think I went past you, sorry.
That's it. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward, sorry, would you mind saying that again, Councillor Woodward?
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. Councillor Bragg,
4.
Councillor Chris Rice.
4.
Okay, bear with me a moment then, Chair. Chair. I have 27 votes in favour, 7 votes against and 4 abstaining.
Thank you very much, Sue. I confirm that that means that council has indicated that it wants to recommend an independent investigation or inquiry. And on that basis, what I'd like to do now is ask the Chief Executive if he'd wish to add anything in relation to...
Chair, could I just add something, please?
Sorry, yeah, well, I'll come to yourself, Philip, but I want to do the Chief Executive first because obviously effectively it's in following on from his report.
But this is to do with the count.
Oh, sorry, is it procedural?
Procedural account.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Skinner.
Because Sue Howell said there was 7 against.
It was 9.
Yes.
Oh.
9 against.
She said 7 against. There was 9 against.
It was 26, 9, 5, I counted.
Yeah.
I actually had 27, 9 and 5, 27, 4, 9 again, 5 abstentions.
I just want clarification, Chair, please.
Could I ask if my colleague made a count as well? I'll double check.
I did, through you, Chair. I had 27 for, 9 against and 5 abstentions.
Sorry.
Are we comfortable with that?
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
comfortable with the result, Chair. I just needed to be absolutely clear what the result was. That was all.
No, that's fair enough. But the advantage, of course, of the way we've done it, Councillor Skinner, doing it through a meeting like this, where everything is absolutely recorded, is, of course, it can be checked afterwards to confirm that actually everything's recorded accurately. So, but thank you for highlighting that. It sounds like we had a miscount. So, Sarah, I'd like to invite the Chief Executive, if you...
Chairman, before that, Councillor David Key, I'm going to have to leave the meeting because I've got to go and chair another meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Good luck with your other meeting. So as I say, just it's Mark. I can't see Mark's light on there. Mark, would you like to add anything at this point?
Yes, if that's okay.
If you would, please.
I'm mindful of what councillors have said around ensuring that something is genuinely independent. I can discuss with you the concerns that the officers certainly have around Verita. I've also heard some of the comments that have been made around using a legal 500 firm of solicitors. I've also heard the comments around the Secretary of State. The only alternative that I can think of, which would hopefully reassure all potential participants in this process that is genuinely independent, is if either our external auditors are requested to carry out an investigation, or if they feel they're not able to, they find another firm of independent, they find another firm of external auditors to do it. The cost would be what it is in terms, but in legal terms, you know, the auditors are able to just do that. They don't have to worry about working to a budget or anything like that. But I'm just literally reflecting on what I've heard from all the councillors who contributed to the debate, and you know, if you want to sort of assure the victim, assure the public, assure yourselves that this is genuinely independent, and that's another option that you might want to consider. Having said that, if you want me to quickly canvass 3A and 3B, our concerns around 3A are set out in the report. I'm just being honest with you. If we went out to tender and selected a short list of 3 firms to do this work, I do not believe Verita would be on that short list. I've also concerns about the element of editorial control that is vested in certain councillors if option 3A is chosen. As regards option 3B, it is literally going to the recommended source, if you like, for legal specialists, and you know, whether you agree with me or not in terms of my legal advice, I think you need good, sound, solid legal advice around everything that is involved in this, because I don't hear it at the moment in terms of the way this is being debated. I'm just being honest with the chair.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess that means almost that there's got to be an amendment proposed, doesn't it, which actually includes the revised or a revised additional option. I can't see any other way around that if any members are minded to do that. I'll wait and see whether any do or not. In the interim, I've got Councillor Bailey. Jess.
Right, thank you very much, Chair. So here we are, however many hours into this latest meeting where we're still going round in circles on this really important issue. I mean, the Chief Executive was requested to identify suitable organisations and terms of reference on the 20th of April. It's now the 28th of September. So when the report came through from the Chief Executive on the 4th of July for the Cabinet recommending no investigation, I was really concerned about that because I felt that it wasn't what the council wanted, and that has been confirmed tonight because the majority of councillors do want an investigation. I feel really upset that we've had to go through this again because we've already been through this, and we decided in April. So I approached some of my colleagues when the no recommendation of investigation came through from the Chief Executive. I went out and I found a company that I felt had equivalent and similar and suitable experience having done investigations of this nature before. Now, the Chief Executive could have identified various companies. The Chief Executive could have identified terms of reference, but for whatever reason, he didn't. So, and I would just draw the council's attention to what Devon County Council are doing. In a matter of weeks, having identified an issue, they went and instructed somebody. They didn't have to have motions. They didn't have to have meetings. They didn't have to have months and months of delay and then re-vote and vote and vote and vote again and again and again. So why are we having to do that? The councillors asked for an investigation in April. They asked for terms of reference. They asked for suitable companies, and we didn't get them. So I went and found what I felt to be an appropriate organisation and 9 other colleagues, and it's not clear from the agenda papers who those 9 colleagues are, but I have written them down and I can read them out because I don't know whether people who are watching will be aware. So we felt collectively that Verita would be a suitable organisation. And I believe that the Chief Executive has had many months to decide who, if the councillors wanted to do an investigation, which entity would be suitable. So today we've had the Secretary of State and we've had external auditors. We still never had any terms of reference. And I feel that this councillors who are potentially tainted by association with this, of what's happened, being blocked. And I have felt that we are being blocked from doing, and it's members' decision. Officers decide, officers advise, members decide. So I'm glad that members for the second time voted that they wanted an investigation. And I hope that that will be implemented. So I went and found what I believe to be a suitable organisation. I've prepared terms of reference. There's 9 other councillors that put forward that requisition. And here we are. It's on the agenda papers. I wouldn't be happy with auditors. I don't know what the auditors are going to do. I don't know what their terms of reference are, who they are. Why is that not on our? If that's an ideal solution, I don't understand why it's not on our agenda papers. We've been doing this for months. The comment about editorial control vested in certain councillors, I guess that the chief executive is referring to me in that. And I have had other comments like that I want to be judge and jury. So I think I would just respond to that by saying, I am not predetermined. I don't know what happened. I don't know who knew what, who did what, or what could have been done. But I think we need to find out. And I believe that Verita are the appropriate organisation. I don't have any influence over them. Somebody has got to be the contact between Verita or the organisation. And I'm not predetermined. Unlike the chief executive, I haven't said I don't think there should be an investigation. I haven't said people will think it's a political witch hunt. I haven't said it might be considered to be a waste of public money. So I believe it needs to be done. I believe that Verita are a suitable organisation. I believe we've been going round in circles for a year, and I believe it reflects really badly collectively on us as an organisation, and also on us individually as councillors. We're elected to be open and transparent. People will wonder, why are we not getting on with this? Why have Devon County Council, within a matter of weeks, got their act together? Why are we still having a discussion a year later whether there should be an investigation? And it's my view that any self-respecting organisation would have done this straight away off its own back. And I don't see why it's taken us a year to get here. And I think people will have justifiable questions about us. So I feel that, yes, there's 100,000 other companies out there that you could potentially instruct, but so far none of them have come forward. And on my view is that we've already had legal advice, and legal advice is all very well, but I don't believe that it will actually get to the bottom of the questions that we still haven't had answers to. And I believe that that's really important. And I believe that, we shouldn't be forced to go over the same things. And I think we need to be really mindful of how that comes across. So I will propose that we appoint Verita. I would like to put that as my recommendation, that we propose Verita. I believe that they're really, that they've got the expertise, they've got the experience, they're completely independent, regardless of what the chief executive says. They don't know anybody here. I'm not going to be editing. I've absolutely no intention of editing anything. So, that's all I've got to say, really.
I'll second that.
Okay. Well,
sorry, Chair, can I just come back as a matter of factual record?
Of course you can, Mark. I was going to ask that, but I was going to just comment that it is important that yes, it's absolutely true that officers deliver, members make the decisions ultimately, although there's slightly complicated at the moment with our current situation on virtual meetings. It is also sensible practice, I believe, for all members, and with 15 years experience of this, for us to take due regard of officers' professional opinions. So I think there needs to be a little bit of balance there. But sorry, Mark, across to you. You wanted to respond, please.
So I will double check my emails by all means, but as a matter of record, Councillor Bailey first recommended or promoted Verita to me before I even took QC's advice. because they had featured in a national inquiry, I think it was, into safeguarding procedure and practice. So I just want to make that clear. Also, just to be clear about this, I've given my advice on the basis of the facts as I have been able to ascertain them and understand them, and I've tried to do it in a cost-effective way for the council. Councillors are, of course, free to spend whatever sums they think are appropriate with regard to a matter, but I don't think it's appropriate to criticise me for trying to protect the public purse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I've got Councillor Miller next. Paul.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, you've also got Simon who'd like to say
my
something.
apologies. Sorry, I didn't. Paul, would you defer to Simon, Mr. Davey? Simon, my apologies. I didn't spot you hiding there with that.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. Just to complicate matters, perhaps for you, Chair, but I just really got to make comment in terms of the recommendation 3A, and I'm named there in terms of leading that particular piece of work. That does create difficulties for me, which I need to let council be aware of. In terms of the chief exec would be by far the most experienced and knowledgeable officer in this area compared to myself. If the issue, as I've understood the debate, is around independence and connections at the time, I was at the time a senior officer of the council, the chief finance officer at that post, so it's no different to me being named as to the chief exec being named. So as a recommendation, I do have difficulties with in terms of leading that investigation. If the point is around independence, I'm in the same position as the chief exec. So members ought to be aware of that before voting, if that recommendation is going to go through as stated.
Thank you very much. Just as an alternative, because I'm obviously, members should be aware that obviously I had involvement with the council during that period as leader of the council in the 2018-19 council year, and also in terms of one of the other areas of scope in relation to how we dealt with the removal of the alderman honour. Obviously that was driven by the chair, and that was me. So clearly there are going to be some differences there. It had been suggested whether it would be considered sensible for, I notice on 3B that actually we've got delegated authority to one of the statutory officers in consultation with portfolio holders for council and corporate coordination and democracy, transparency and communications. Now, would council feel more comfortable with that the case rather than you being named, Simon, and similarly me being in there? And also what it does do, if there is any concern, reasonable or otherwise, that Councillor Bailey has a particularly strong interest in this project, it does also remove her from that as well and avoid any possible allegations. Just a suggestion, if anybody's in to support that, I'm quite happy to propose that as a change, as an amendment to 3A. Do I have a second or not? Don't all rush at once. Okay, fair enough. We don't have a second for that, so that one will fall away. And beyond that, I think we've just got to note your comments, Simon, at this point, and we may need to pick it up subsequently. So next to speak, sorry, Paul, I go back to you. Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Chair. Just on your comment about having due regard for advice, certainly me, and I think my colleagues have always had that due regard, and on the vast majority of occasions we tend to vote according to officer advice because they are the professionals. But this is it's quite a unique situation, this has been. I personally feel convinced that Verita are a competent and credible organisation, partly by the report Councillor Davies also read on a very similar case of safeguarding within the Green Party, partly by the breadth of inquiries they've done and the expertise they have internally. Look at their website. I have to reject, in my opinion, the suggestion that their lawyers are not in any way qualified to investigate issues relating to local government. I also, contrary to what I think you just said, Chair, trust Councillor Bailey's judgment as an interested party. Just because she's interested in the issue does not make her not impartial. She's neither part of the administration nor the opposition. She's an independent councillor. She's a member of the Law Society. She's not had any involvement with the case at all. And if Councillor Bailey's name is the only name on that list, I'd be happy to support that, because I think there's, in my opinion, trust there. And, you know, the editor, I didn't get the comment about editorial control either. Regarding the Chief Executive's alternative recommended investigation, it contains no terms of reference or organisation to carry out the inquiry. Is it appropriate to delay this any further following all these months, you know, over a year, when we have a competent organisation already in place to do this work? And then crucial information hasn't been shared with us relating to the council's knowledge prior to the involvement of a national journalist. It was only because of the involvement of a national journalist that we've known what we know. There have been conversations that have been had with significant others. There was reference at the last cabinet meeting to a discussion with the LGA head of safeguarding. We haven't heard about that. We haven't seen the instructions to the QC. Now we have the suggestion of involving the Conservative Party Secretary of State. Why wasn't that in the report for us to be able to digest and consider? Why wasn't the suggestion of, you know, the external auditors in the report for us to digest and consider? The Chief Executive has already stated via email to the requisitioners that he wishes any results of such an inquiry to remain strictly confidential. But to be truly independent, the inquiry cannot be seen, in my opinion, to be potentially directed or micromanaged, if you like, by any officer or member involved in any way present at the time. In conclusion, Chair, I will be voting for Councillor Bailey's investigation. There's been a lack of transparency, unacceptable delays of getting a proper inquiry underway, which I know from speaking from residents is desired, but we heard it at the start of the meeting from the victim that it is desired. We now must get this inquiry immediately underway. So I urge all my colleagues to vote for the Verita investigation. Thanks.
Thank you. Just for the avoidance of doubt, I wasn't inferring any shortfall in Councillor Bailey at all. On the contrary, as she's well aware, she's both commended her on the basis she actually came forward with a properly researched proposal, which in fairness compared favourably in terms of its research, at least with others that we sometimes have to deal with. I've got Chief Executive Mark. Do you want to comment?
Well, again, apologies for coming back, but just as a matter of factual record, I did not say that this should be confidential. I highlighted the fact that I think this should be non-confidential. I think if there is to be one, everything should be in the public domain. Because of, you know, the recent experience this council has had is that it was highly unsatisfactory in terms of doing things confidentially. So everything should be in the public domain so that it can be looked at, as opposed to just having a report in the public domain without any ability to interrogate, if you like, the background documentation.
Thank you for that, Mark. I've got Councillor Arnott next. Paul.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I'll try and be brief because I think it is necessary to be brief now. Chair, in relation to something you've just said, I have to challenge that with all respect. What you just tried to do was to amend 3A to exclude Councillor Bailey. That would have been the effect. So if Councillor Bailey feels a little bit sore about that, I wouldn't be surprised, notwithstanding the remark you just made about your respect for her. So this is really very straightforward now. We've now voted twice to do an investigation. A law firm? Of course not. Of course not. Because you know what a law firm will do, Chair? They'll go and find Verita. So why do we want to put that in there? An auditor? Well, I played football with an auditor on Sunday. He's a lovely lad. He'll look through your accounts, he'll look through your strategies, he might even look through your safeguarding policy. But he or she won't look through what has actually happened here. We are in danger today of losing sight of the wood because we're focusing too much on the trees. This is a multi-agency, disgusting failure, resulting in the hideous disadvantage to a number of people, one of whom we have heard from this evening. The police, Humphrey's Party, various schools, Devon County Council, Exmouth Town Council, the Masons, us? Question mark. I don't know. So what we need to do is get somebody who has the skills and the imagination and the investigative experience to see that that is the premise that needs to be looked at. You need somebody working on it with some imagination. The minute it gets boiled down into legal disputes, and we've sort of got into that tonight in a sort of slightly quasi way, we will fail to serve the public interest here. I have a great deal of respect for the CEO, and I understand why he has given the advice he has given. And I hope he has enough respect for me and for us, and I'm sure he does, if we disagree with it. He's used the term fact specific. Well, there are specific facts, I think, many of them that have not been taken into account into considering these recommendations yet. So I'll conclude, Chair. I think 3A we should vote for as it stands. And I think what flows from that, Chair, if I may flag it, is that we should park 4, 5 and 6, because 3A, that process needs to take place. We then receive the report back to the council, and I had to support the CEO. He did say, he has always said that this won't be confidential, although some matters hitherto have been confidential, but it won't be. I think after that, we then consider the matters in 4 and 6. Now, I don't really know how we do that, Chair. We have a proposer and a seconder for this motion. I'll certainly be voting for it. If we get to 4, I'm happy to speak again and suggest perhaps let's leave those for another day. Thank you.
Okay, well, what I propose we do, Councillor Arnott, is we'll work our way through and wrap up part 3, A or B. I think it's important that we actually do that. And then if council was of the view it wanted to park 4 to 6, I'm not sure personally that it's actually necessary, but if it felt its wish to do that, then obviously that can be put forward as an amendment. I've got Councillor Woodward. Tony.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few words on the expectations from a review investigation by anybody or under A or B, that this I think some councillors may be disappointed in the outcome of the report. As council, the QC mentioned, there's no compulsion on anybody to respond to the investigation, and there's no compulsion on any particular party either. The statements that have already been made, I cannot see why an individual would now suddenly change their or disclose any new information to make them appear culpable in what has went on before. There's any I'm not saying there has been, I'm just saying that I do not think that either Veritas or anybody else would be able to get to the deep truth of what actually went on. That said, the part I think we should focus on is the safeguarding procedures and what happens next. How do we safeguard for future references of what happens? And in that respect, I think Veritas would be adequate for that job. It's been said that they've done, and I've investigated the Green Party, but that's very different to this situation in that the Green Party commissioned that report. It was, if you like, an in-house report on them, and they were very happy to be involved in that process. I don't think that would necessarily be the case here, but that's just a reservation I have. So I'm happy to go with 3A. I just don't think councillors should be have their expectations too high that there will be any particular outcome which will be of significant interest to them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Jess, I'm not going to take another contribution from you. As sticking with the same process as before, we've actually taken 1 for each section maximum. I've got Councillor Allen. Mike next, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to explain why I can't, why I abstained last time, and I can't agree to either A or B this time. This is a serious problem for me, and one which I'm very familiar with through having had the life of one of my family members ruined by a paedophile. And it makes me extremely angry that anyone should turn this into any form of political issue. Very angry that we are not looking to do what is the really essential thing here, which is to make sure this never happens again. And that's the point. And all I'm hearing so far is that we want to investigate what happened. And I want to make sure that we set up systems that never allows this to happen again. Such an evil man should never have got into the system in the first place. But these kind of people are highly slippery, very, very clever, very, very able to manipulate. And so we have to have some form of system that will eliminate the possibility. On top of which, how do you know if somebody is actually guilty if they're accused? I happen to know of a councillor in this council who had very evil pictures on his PC. The thing was, he wasn't guilty. Absolutely not. So we must make sure that in every respect, whatever we do and whatever we decide is determining to make sure that this never, ever happens again. That's the best security we can give to the general public. Now, on that basis, I think Councillor Davey came up with a solution. And I sincerely hope that his group, which is determined to press through to a resolution of this, will listen to him. He suggested that Ofsted, with all their expertise and clear independence, might be considered for an investigation. I think that is the best solution I've heard so far, and I would sincerely hope that every single councillor here makes sure that their conscience is involved in the decision of what you do, because I hope that out of all of this, it never, ever happens again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. I've got out to whether that's a formal proposal. I guess it's whether you need a second for that. If you wanted to add Ofsted as an alternative, it does run the risk, of course, of falling into the trap of running around the houses again, which clearly I'm conscious a lot of members are concerned about. It's a shame we didn't have a wider discussion earlier in the process, but we didn't. We are where we are, and we've got to make a decision where we go in what timescale from here. Was that a formal proposal, or?
I think, frankly, Chair, I feel railroaded in terms of Veritas. It's all been sorted out in advance. Clearly, the leader has indicated to his entire group that's the way they're going to vote. I think that we're all being bullied.
Point of order, Chair. Can the council please withdraw that statement? It's unfounded. Thank you.
Yeah, you just said they've been bullied and that is just crap, I'm afraid. Take me to standards for saying crap. Please, Councillor Annie,
Well,
meant to be a Christian. Please end
It
this.
looks as if the leader and deputy leader have just bullied me. Thank you.
We'll get into the pulpit and tell us that next weekend.
Oh.
Can we leave that alone?
No, I
please,
think we're in a
gentlemen?
situation
Ladies and
where there
gentlemen,
is clear disrespect of my Christian beliefs.
Could I ask that we don't get diverted into this route, else I shall be forced to display what I'm wearing below the waist, which is not a particularly good thought. Councillor Skinner, Philip.
Thank you. And I'm really quite concerned here about the way this is unfolding. And I'm really concerned about a member of the council putting forward a recommendation of a particular company to look into, a particular firm to look into issues over this particular authority in the way that we've got an issue that's come forward to us. I have every faith in Mark Williams as our chief executive and the SMT team that work with him. They are professional, and Mark's background is of a legal basis. The way that Mark has been trying to conduct himself is not only the protection of ensuring he does the right thing for this authority, but also protecting this authority against people coming up with whimsical comment. The decisions that we make here on such an important issue are becoming, they should be factually bound. Hearsay that is being muted about by members on long, grandstanding opinions, I don't feel have place here today. What I am sure that the officers, Mark Williams and the team, and Mark himself, is doing his utmost to ensure that if there is going to be an investigation of some sort, that investigation is done by a proper firm company or even the Secretary of State. And I've heard here this evening about the ability of the Secretary of State of this country being almost put in the bin. It's shocking sort of talk as far as I'm concerned. It's no more than hearsay, and it's just somebody's view. What Mr. Williams did do is he put forward some alternatives, some options in going forward. And do you know what? If it took longer to get to where we need to be, to get to the right conclusion, then that's absolutely fine by me. Because as far as I'm concerned, this isn't a race. The crime has been committed, and the gentleman concerned about that crime is in jail. What we are trying to do, and I think the point that Councillor Allen suggested, and I'm sure with the place we all want to be in, is ensuring that this doesn't happen again. That's the place we're trying to get into, that it doesn't happen again. And I'm sure all members agree with that. I am not happy with this company being put forward by a councillor. The proper procedure, the way that it should be done, is officers will lead on how they think is the best way forward, putting options to us as councillors, giving us recommendations, and we as councillors deciding upon the recommendations that are being put in front of us. That's the procedure, that's the structure, that's the discipline in which we work. And if we don't work within those disciplines, we just move into chaos. I can tell you now, Chair, I am extremely unhappy and concerned about a company being muted by a councillor in coming forward, regardless of her motives. And I have no issues with Councillor Bailey at all in her motives, in the way that I feel she's trying to do something. I don't see that at all. But that's not the point. What we have to be here is whiter than white to everybody else whom is looking in on this. And the way to do that, to be absolutely clean, is we do it through the officer process. That's the way it should always be done. It's the way it's always been done. And to challenge our officers, I think, is shameful. So I am not supportive of this going for this particular company, whoever they may be. I don't know anything about them. I wouldn't know them from a bag of apples. It's not my business. But I do know it is the business of the chief executive, and I have every faith in him. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Councillor Loudon, John.
Thank you, Chair. At this point, I accept that an independent investigation would be appropriate. And if I'm looking at 3A and I'm looking at 3B, regretfully, I'm not minded to be supportive of 3B. I've in my own mind, I was thinking the NSPC, Barnardo's, organisations like that. But I hear what other people have said this evening. Now, if I turn to recommendation 3A, I would like to support it, but I can't, I'm afraid, because I disagree with the names stroke the roles that have been allocated to manage, if you like, this process. And it is for that reason that I come to the sad view that I have to abstain.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon. I've got Councillor Hayward next. Paul, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I had heard of Verita through various means, but never actually looked into them. So a quick review of their website appears to indicate that amongst their client list is Great Ormond Street Hospital, the UK Health Security Agency, Serco, the Department of Health, Public Health England, NHS Direct, Mighty Group, the State Government of Jersey, the RCN, the NMC, the Green Party, as we know, the Civil Aviation Authority, and indeed Devon and Cornwall Police, who have all trusted Verita to undertake investigations. In fact, a comment just made a few moments ago by another member about Secretary of State's involvement, a direct testimonial from their website from the Secretary of State for Health. I wanted to write and thank you and your team at Verita for your excellent work overseeing the NHS investigation reports, which were into the infiltration of the NHS by the notorious paedophile Jimmy Savile. So this is the standard of work that they work to. And the Secretary of State, given one name here, has given a testimonial. So when the vote comes around, I'll be voting in accordance with my conscience on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Wragg. Eileen.
Thank you, Chair. I find it totally abhorrent, having met with the victim, one of the victims, and there must be many more, that the accusation of political capital being made is being hurled at us. It really is not the case. This is about the victims, purely and simply about the victims. What sort of party would use victims as a ploy to get votes or whatever else? It really is not that, and I deplore the allegations that are being made. This is sincere and genuine concern by people who care, and people who care about other people, not about a political party which closes ranks. I knew about the allegations against Humphreys. 2016, 17, therefore, as I've said before, it is inconceivable that the Tory party members, some of them, were unaware of it. And as for confidence in the Secretary of State, I'm afraid confidence has also been undermined in some officers of whatever authority, all three perhaps, in that this was not brought to the attention of members and that Humphreys was actually being promoted. Now, had he, that honour would have given him, of honorary alderman, would have given him even more credibility in court, which is why I applaud the bravery of the victim, because he was really up against it, And Humphreys accused the victims in court, the two who actually were allowed to go to court. There must be many, many more. in standing up to him, and he accused them of trying to use this case to extort money from him. You've only got to look at the one victim that I've met to know that, you know, his life is shattered. And there are some people here tonight, and I put money on it. I don't bet, but on this I put money on it. There are some people here tonight who should be hanging their heads in shame because they were well aware of it. If I was aware of it back then, they would certainly have been aware of it. And as I said before, it's either collusion and collaboration or a cover-up. And only a completely independent investigation is going to uncover that. And you've heard Councillor Hayward read the commendation, if I can call it that, and you know, the report that he's read on the website are the high-level investigations that this company. I don't care which company carries out the investigation. We have to uncover this to ensure that it doesn't happen again. But unfortunately, we know that it will happen again. We all know it'll happen again. When it comes to child protection, yeah, people do what they can. The organisations do what they can, but it keeps coming up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Eileen. I've got Henry. Henry, do you want to speak now?
Thank you, Chair. So, I mean, there's quite a few things I probably could say, but I'm just going to focus on one, which is in relation to my observations of this and the way members have spoken about the sort of understanding as to what might or might not have been done. And it's been posed as, well, there are outstanding questions, but lots of answers have been given, as the Chief Executive said. But one thing that concerned me was the leader's comment about who one might use and saying that it shouldn't be a legal practice, and effectively that the legal position thinking outside and beyond, and I'm paraphrasing, forgive me, the leader, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but effectively it goes beyond, you know, looking in from a wider lens, perhaps is the best way of putting it. But what I wanted to flag is that from a local government perspective, you know, we are a creature of statute as a body. And effectively all our actions are governed by a legal framework, powers and duties. And this issue has got a multitude of different obligations all flowing through it. And so from my point of view, and the advice to the council is that any report, that framework has to be clearly understood. And I appreciate Verita have done lots of work elsewhere, but the local government framework is very acute and very specific. And so my advice is you just need to be, that report has to be clearly done on the understanding of the local government framework. And the question I pose is, how does the council reassure itself to give confidence to those who will be involved, who it wants to be involved, that is going to be the case, that it is going to be understood, and thereby making sure that those outcomes, whatever they may be, are meaningful for the organisation. The flip side is one goes ahead and does it, and then the council just has to accept that there is one might call it an aspirational aspect to it, perhaps, that it is out with the understanding of that framework, and it has to take that report in that vein. So I simply flag that whoever is chosen, and I think it's also worth picking up that the issue of who else might be appropriate is because of the specific comments around independent investigation. And you can't get away from the fact that Verita, whatever they may be outside the organisation, they have been contacted by a councillor from within the organisation who has then instructed effectively to come up with a brief. Can that be said to be truly independent? I think what Mark was alluding to is if you were to go to the Secretary of State, and I appreciate the political affiliations, if you were to go to the Secretary of State or Grant Thornton or whoever they might recommend, it is then truly independent from anybody having any involvement to date. And I think that's the simple point. It's not about, well, it could have been referenced in the report earlier. because that issue about it being truly independent has only really arisen tonight. So I think it's fair to say to Mark that these are ideas to try and help the council along so that you do get that true independence, if that's what you're actually after. But I think that the critical point for me is making sure that if you are going to, but whoever you're going to instruct, that legal framework point is clearly understood, to give the reassurance to those who might be involved, or as I say, who you want to be involved specifically, because some of it will be outside of the organisation. And then you might get more traction with those, so you get a fuller report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I believe of people who've not spoken before, I've only got Megan, Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Faithful Peter outstanding. I believe Councillors Miller, Arnott and Bailey have all spoken on this section previously, so consistent with process so far. I'm going to just take from Councillor Armstrong and then Councillor Faithful, please. Councillor Armstrong, Megan.
Thank you, Chair. It's just 2 or 3 comments on what's been said by Councillor Allen and Councillor Skinner, particularly. And Councillor Ragg did touch on this about. I think both councillors, Skinner and Allen, particularly Councillor Allen, you've worked with me a long time now. And if I thought that any of this was party political or, was trying to get one over on somebody else or whatever, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole, quite honestly. You've both said that we just want to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's what my understanding is of all of the people, the 10 requisitioners and all members who have voted to have this independent investigation. That's what we all believe in. It's not party political. It never has been. We just want to know what the truth is, what's happened, and to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Which leads me on to the next point, which Councillor Skinner mentioned about that it's not a race. And I understand partly what he means by that, because the current person is in jail. But the race for me, the speed it has to be done at for me, and it's going to be done properly, admittedly, it's because we're trying to protect children in future. And, that's what it's all about for me. And that's why we need to just get on with it, because we've got to put systems in place in future. If we don't have them already, which I don't think we do, we have to put systems in place so that we can protect children in future and vulnerable adults. So I just want to reassure both Councillor Allen and Councillor Skinner particularly, because they mentioned it about it being political and that it shouldn't happen again. And I think we're all singing from the same hymn sheet on that. That's my view of it. I might be naive, but that's my view of it. And I wouldn't have put my name down on a requisition if I didn't believe in that. So thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, as a point of order, if you don't mind, Councillor Armstrong, and I respect what Councillor Armstrong said, but she said that I've referred to being a political sort of party. I've not said that.
No, sorry.
I
did not say that, and I want that clear.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's noted. Thank you. If we just converse through, I've got 2 more speakers I'm going to take, and then we'll go for a choice on 3A or 3B. Seems the option is presented, which is we've got Councillor Peter Faithful. Peter. And then Councillor Jackson.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that going back to what Mark Williams explained about the appointing of an alderman, the position of or giving the whatever honour, it was our responsibility as councillors, regardless of which party. And for the life of me, I don't remember whether I voted for or I didn't vote at all for, but so we're right across the board. To some extent, we're all guilty of giving that award. And for me, I would like to see, maybe this is over the top way of looking into it, but that's why I was looking for the investigation, for us as councillors to get a better understanding, or whatever, look into as much our own actions as anybody else. So, for me, it's totally right across the board, regardless of any party, is everyone is to some extent, even if they're just a little bit guilty or whatever, but that's how I'm looking at it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Final speaker on this, Councillor Jackson. Sarah.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of comments, really. In all likelihood, I'll probably abstain on this one, only because I'm named in both. And to be perfectly honest, I'm quite torn. I am comforted by the information provided by Councillor Hayward around Verita. I think that's important to recognise that they have been used by a number of very reputable organisations to do similar sorts of works, and I think that's positive. I also wanted to just highlight I have no major issue with Councillor Bailey being involved either, and the reason that I say that is because it's only really through her tenacity that we are looking at two options for how we pursue an independent review, given the original recommendations were that we perhaps do not pursue an independent investigation on this one. And now we actually have options in front of us, and I think that's positive. And I think that there may very well be recommendations that are made that we do not have the power to action, but at least we can recognise what the proposed recommendations would be off the back of an independent review, and establish what we can do and what we may need additional support from central government in order to be in a position to achieve later on. So I have no major concerns with either option A or option B. I think it's for members to decide which one they're most comfortable with, but I just wanted to state that really that I will likely abstain simply because I'm named in both. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I've not had any proposals for a recorded vote, so unless
Chair, please can I propose that now, Jay Bonetta? Thank you.
And I'll second it.
Right, well, I think that was quite quick then. So could we have a quick formal vote again, please? Green ticks for in favour of a recorded vote, red crosses against, or hands for abstention. Again, I think that's a comprehensive win for a recorded vote, so that will happen. Sue, are you ready to roll?
Yes. Can you just confirm what this is?
I'm just about to do that. I thought so. Just for the avoidance of doubt, if you could answer, please, either A for option 3A. It's not complicated, this one. B for option 3B, or indicate by saying abstain if you don't vote for either of them. And at that point, over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Okay.
Chair, could I ask for a quick summary of A and B, please?
It's on page 3 of your agenda papers. It's a quick summary. I don't know whether you can actually do anything more than what's written there. Do you have access to it? Sorry, I didn't see who actually asked for that. So it's
Yeah, it's Councillor Bruce, Chair. I'm bouncing in and out of connection, so I'm struggling here a bit.
I mean, if you wish, I can quickly read it straight out, but I've got option A is council hereby commissions Verita to carry out an independent investigation in accordance with Verita's proposal attached, that's within the papers, and instructs Simon Davey, strategic lead for finance, immediately to complete or authorise completion of the contract and any necessary paperwork with Verita. Approves a budget up to 45,000, excluding VAT for the investigation. Approves an exemption to council's standing orders that would normally require quotations to be obtained from 3 suppliers to enable the council to appoint Verita, given their experience and expertise in this highly specialist area. Requests that Verita treats Simon Davey, together with Councillor Ian Thomas, Chair of East Devon District Council, and Councillor Sarah Jackson, Portfolio Holder for Democracy and Transparency, and Councillor Jess Bailey as the relevant contacts for the purpose of any queries or day-to-day matters relating to the investigation, and who shall, in the first instance, receive Verita's report following completion of the investigation.
Thanks, Chair. I've got it up
3B.
now. I've got it. I'll save you the trouble. I've got it up now, Chair. Thank you.
All right, so you don't need me to go through 3B then for balance.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, fair enough. So it's A for 3A, B for 3B, and abstain if you wish to abstain. And again, over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allen.
I'm really sorry, but I have to abstain.
Councillor Armstrong.
A, thank you.
Councillor Arnott.
A.
A. Councillor Bailey.
A.
Councillor Bickley.
A.
Councillor Bonetta.
A. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Bruce.
Abstain, Chair.
Councillor Cahill.
Abstain.
Sorry, Councillor Cahill, would you mind repeating that?
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Abstain, please, Sue.
Councillor Chapman.
Abstain, Sue.
Councillor Coleman.
A.
Councillor Davey.
A.
Councillor Desarum.
None of the items, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Faithful.
Abstain.
Right, shuffling my papers around. Councillor Hall.
Abstain.
Councillor Hayward.
3A. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Hookway.
A, please, Sue.
Councillor Ingham.
Abstain.
Councillor Jackson.
Abstain for the reasons detailed. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Johns.
Sorry, Sue. A, please.
Councillor Young.
A.
Councillor Kemp.
A.
Councillor Key.
He's left.
Oh, okay. Councillor Lawrence.
Abstain, Sue.
Councillor Loudon.
Abstain, thank you.
Councillor Manley.
A, please.
Councillor Miller.
A.
Councillor Parr.
Abstain.
Councillor Pepper.
Abstain.
Councillor Pratt.
A, please, Sue.
Councillor Rickson.
3A, please.
Councillor Rowland.
A.
Councillor Ryland.
A.
Yeah.
Ryland. A.
Councillor Skinner.
Abstain, please, Sue.
Councillor Taylor.
A.
Councillor Thomas.
Abstain, please, Sue.
Councillor Twiss. Councillor Twiss. Councillor Wibley.
A, please. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Woodward.
Abstain.
Councillor Ragg.
Oh, A, sorry.
And Councillor Chris Wright.
A.
Okay. Right, bear with me, Chair. Make sure I don't get wrong. Okay. Okay. I have 22 votes for 3A and 18 votes to abstain. Could I just ask my colleague if she can confirm that, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Sue.
I have the same, Sue. So that's so on that basis, A is carried into the recommendation. Next thing is move on to recommendation 4. Now, again, I'm going to invite the Chief Executive if he wants to say anything in relation to recommendation 4 before we discuss that. Hang on, he's gone. Sorry, Mark, did you indicate then?
Yeah, yes, I did. I wasn't sure whether you were going to call me or not. So it's not...
I thought, God, he was quick.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to, my laptop crashed. I'm just trying to get the up. Bear with me. Sorry. So I almost hesitate to say anything, obviously, in terms of what's been said tonight. But I think 4, 5, and 6 aren't necessarily time sensitive. I say that particularly because you'll have seen within my report that there is already work underway with the other Devon districts and Devon County Council to look at our collective safeguarding policy. Also, there is an audit being carried out of safeguarding policy and practice. I've provided everything I know in terms of my report and published documents relating to Humphreys. So our partner colleagues are fully aware of that. I'm pretty sure that will be taken into account in terms of what comes back for further consideration in due course. So, arguably for, well, we're not going to even be thinking about Alderman again until September next year, probably, for argument's sake, at the earliest. So that's not time sensitive. 5, that may well come out of the work that we do as collective Devon family of councils, and 6, well, it would involve lobbying anyway. So there's a long time frame involved in lobbying, as we know.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I think that sort of throws the ball open. I don't know whether Councillor Arnott's going to propose what we mooted earlier on. Paul.
Yes, thank you very much, Ian, and thank you particularly for Mark on that as well. I think that's all very sensible at this stage. And Chair, I don't know how you'd like to do it, but if I would happily propose that we. Well, I don't know, Chair. I mean, I suppose defer, Park. I don't know what the constitutional terms. I don't feel we need to.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if you want to propose deferral of recommendations 4, 5, and 6, then I need a seconder for that, please.
I'll second it.
I'll happily second it.
Councillor Skinner seconding.
Yep.
Second. And on that, anybody want to speak on for or against this, or do we just take this straight to a vote?
Well, can we be specific, Chair? I have my hand up that it is deferred until the inquiry investigation is published. At which point we're going to have we're going to be able to look at this with some informed eyes.
I mean, Mark, there's no reason why that isn't a totally sensible approach, is it?
No, I think, no, as I say, I mean, I think I found the paragraph I was trying to find, but if you look at paragraph 7 of my report, I highlighted what's other work is underway. So, you know, that's going to happen. So the result of that work and the result of the investigation, when it's completed, can be considered by Cabinet or Council in due course.
Lovely. Well, we've got Councillor Arnott proposing something, seconded by Councillor Skinner and Councillor Miller and the Chief Exec agreeing. So on that basis, I think I'll bank that. And can we please go for a vote to confirm that? Green ticks in favour, please. Red crosses against.
I'm sorry, Chair. You've got Councillor Jackson there. I wonder if you've seen her hand. So sorry to interrupt.
There's no hand up. Sorry, I've got. Did I miss that, Sarah? Did you want to say something?
I put it down when you started calling for the vote. It was really.
Oh, my apologies. I didn't spot it. That's God.
No,
it was just the surprise of Councillor Skinner and Arnott agreeing on something. So that was I wanted to bank that one. So all those in favour, please. Green ticks. Anyone who's against? Red crosses or any abstentions? With the yellow marigolds. Well, I'm really pleased to say nobody wanted to record a vote on that one, but I think I could probably, it looks unanimous at the moment. So on that basis, I confirm that recommendations 4, 5 and 6 are deferred until the report under 3A is received. And on that basis, that brings our council.
A quick word, a quick comment, please. Can anybody, whereby the vote that Councillor Arnott and ourselves agreed, frame it? It's never likely to happen again.
I think that'll be the newspaper headlines, maybe, anyway. But
I'll see you in strategic planning in 12 hours, Phil.
No problem, Paul.
Well, it's nice to finish on what's been it's a very difficult subject, and I thank everybody for their positive contributions to it. It is hard. There's no right answers in something like this. And I think, as I said earlier on, I think we're all in the same frame, that we're all absolutely abhorrent of the activities that went on with former Councillor Humphreys. And that's no, without exception. So I take great reassurance from that. And I think it's right that we should be looking to make sure these things don't happen again. And as the protection of our children and vulnerable people is top of priorities, second to none, as far as I'm concerned. I think colleagues know. So I said, this brings our council meeting to an end, and I'd like to thank everyone, including members of the public, for their attendance. Members, can I remind you that until the Democratic Service...
Yeah, Councillor Jackson's got a hand up. You seem to be omitting her at every occasion. I'm just pointing out Councillor Jackson does have a hand up.
Oh, dear it. You put it up again, Sarah.
I have actually. I did respond to say I had my hand up last time, but I didn't get an opportunity to actually make my point, and then you moved on. And indeed, earlier on when I posed a question to Henry, that I was waiting for his response so I could give a comment, but I didn't get the opportunity to do that either.
God, I'll tell you what, don't take it personally, Sarah. Just put it down to my lack of competence. I'm sorry, would you like to round the meeting off for me? I mean, is that...
It was only just to highlight to members that they have received a request from Democratic Services to give feedback around the safeguarding training which is scheduled, and just a request that members engage with that at the earliest opportunity, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to have the third go at closing the meeting now. Can I thank everyone for attending? Members, can I remind you that until the Democratic Services team confirm live streaming and recording has stopped, you can still be seen and heard, and any comments made may be recorded. recorded. Thank you very much and good night.